Hi everybody, it's Sarah Cray with Let's Make Art, and today we are doing a spring floral mini painting. Ah. We have been doing this series of mini paintings since we started carrying these darling little ornament frames that I'm so obsessed with, and painting tiny is just so cute.
It's so fun.
The other really fun thing about painting tiny is that it's quick. You know what I mean? Slow
Mhm.
stress, low commitment. And since we've done a couple landscapes, I thought it might be nice to change it up and do some florals. Okay?
Twist my arm.
All right. I'm going to put all of the supplies that I'm using in the YouTube description so you can take a look at that. And we'll just be doing this painting in 3 steps. Okay.
Okay.
We're going to do an all over kind of loose floral wash. Our second step is we're going to do the petal detail. So any kind of detail lines we want to do on our flowers. And our third step is the center of the flowers and just some leaves.
Okay.
That's it.
Piece of cake.
The really fun thing about this project too is you can easily adjust this to any flowers that you want. I'm doing like a mix of flowers that don't really exist and are inspired by flowers that do exist. I feel like this is kind of pansy-ish and this is kind of like Icelandic poppy-ish, but like
Who knows?
do what you want. Make up flowers. It's your painting. Um, Before we get started, let's do our oath. So if you can raise your right hand and repeat after me. I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise not to compare my work.
I promise not to compare my work.
And I promise to have fun.
And I promise to have fun.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And I love starting that way because it's just a reminder that we're here just to have fun. That's it.
And make millions. We're getting there.
Okay, so before I get started with the wash, I just want to say the paper that I'm using is actually the Let's Make Art 100% cotton cold press watercolor paper that we came out with. This all started because we kind of like made our own paper. We put it in the National Parks box last year for you guys to sample, and we had gotten a lot of requests for pads. So we did pre-order for pads, so those have shipped and you guys are using them. So I thought, let's use it together, okay?
Sounds great.
All right, so you can use any size brush that you want for doing this wash. This is like I'm not gonna tell you what round it is, okay? Because brush sizing is not the same and it will confuse you if I say the size that it says on this brush.
2.7.
It says a round 1, and like Polina brushes are great, but
Around
like
1
in
would
no
be tiny.
world is this a round 1. This is a round 1. Anyway, sorry about that. But you can use like a round 6, round 8, round 10, round 4. You can use a round 1. It will take forever. All right, we're going to just start by doing like a loose wash to begin with. And the colors that I'm using are Opera Pink, Hansa Yellow, Cobalt Blue. You're going to have to pry this combination out of my cold, dead hands because I cannot stop with it. And I refuse to apologize. Okay.
I will not be taking questions.
People are like, I'm not mad that you're using it. I'm like, leave me alone.
Yep.
It's about right. Okay, so I'm going to mix some Opera Pink and some Hansa Yellow till I get this like really pretty peachy pink. I'm going to start with doing like just a roundish shape. I'm not going to start at the very center of my painting. That's what your brain is going to tell you to do. Don't do it. I'm going to go off slightly to the side. Notice that my edges are not evenly round. You want that kind of fluttery, petally feel. And if you feel like it, you can drop in like a little extra value along the edges or kind of throughout. If you can remember to leave the center white, please do. I kind of painted over mine, but I'm just going to touch in some Hansa Yellow and just going to let that bleed. And then I really also love it when you mix Opera Pink with Cobalt Blue. You get like the most gorgeous kind of like lavendery color. So I'm just going to be mixing these colors together and kind of layering it throughout. Dang, I forgot to do the middle again. Oh well. Drop yellow in the
And
center.
fixed.
And not a problem.
Looks like eyes right now. Hello.
Hello.
Paint me.
Now, whenever you're switching colors up and you're doing like a floral like pattern like this, one thing that you do kind of want to be aware of is your color placement. For example, if I decided to do this purpley pink blue color only on the right hand side, and then this peachy pink color only on the left hand side, that's going to create a very strong implied line within my composition. So you just want to try and switch it up. So if I did peachy pink on this side, then I'm going to go over here and do peachy pink over here. Now, as you can see, when the colors touch, they blend together. I'm not mad about that. I love it when that happens. I embrace it when that happens.
All my homies love blending colors.
We say, I
What?
don't know. I felt like I had an idea of what I was going to say that was funny. And then when I went to say it, it immediately left my brain. Because I would think I was thinking of the word homie that you just said.
All my homies love implied lines.
Redirected my brain that I'm like, it's gone. Okay. And I'm just going to keep on going. And also, don't be afraid of doing some darker values. I've been working in pretty light washes. I love going in here and just taking like a hint of opera pink or even the cobalt, like a hint of cobalt in there. Oh, it's stunning. And then if you're trying to like do specific flowers, you can like pay attention to those shapes and put those in instead of this basic round shape that I'm doing. Now, with this new cotton watercolor paper that we have here, we have gotten a couple questions of like, how do I use this paper? Okay.
Paint on it.
Yes, which it's interesting because I'm going to talk a little bit about paper for a second, which is I truly don't believe that supplies are inherently bad or good. I really think it just depends on do they work well with the tools that you like to use already, or do they coincide with the style and how you like to approach painting things? So those all kind of inform your experience with watercolor paper. If you're used to using just like Arches paper or something like that, then this paper is going to feel a bit different in the way that it's much more fibrous. Like it feels more like cotton, like softer. I call it like fabricy, as opposed to sometimes Arches paper is really starchy to me, that it feels like almost like it could snap if I were to like bend it, even though it doesn't.
Mm.
But with that being said, sometimes when we get really used to a paper, we're just like, oh my goodness, like what is this paper doing? I don't know how to use this. It's not like I don't like it, all of that kind of stuff. When in reality, it just is behaving a little bit differently than what we're used to, which again is not inherently bad. And actually, for a very long time, I did not like Arches paper. Like for the first probably, gosh, how many years?
4 or 5.
Probably at least 5 years of my watercolor experience and journey, I literally only used Walmart Canson watercolor paper. And the reason why, because it worked really well with my liquid watercolors, which is what I prefer to use. So that's why I kind of like lean towards that a lot. And then it took some getting used to in terms of like how I worked with Arches. So all of that is to say, when you work with new paper, you paint in it like you normally would, and you just observe the differences and see if that is something that you like or that you're aligned with. One thing that I do like about this paper is that the pigment kind of adheres to it a little bit different than Arches, which makes it seem more textured, like kind of a grainier texture. And you can kind of see that here in terms of the washes, like how much, even though some of these colors are a little bit granulating, are they?
Are they granulating?
I'm trying to see if I can look. I don't know. I think cobalt is a granulating color. I'm fairly sure. So when I mix it with like the opera pink, the purple is going to be granulating. But all of that is to say that like this paper leans into like the texture of the paint a little bit more. It kind of highlights that paper texture more instead of being like perfectly smooth, which Arches tends to smooth out really lovely. And that's not bad either. They're just different. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just like I use this paper as I would normally for as I would like Arches, except it is going to have a little bit more of a texture than I'm kind of used to, which okay, it does. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
And that's just how I approach with new materials. And the more that you paint, I'm going to switch to a round two for a second to do some leaves. But the more that you paint, the more you're going to recognize how things react on a paper. And when you're first starting out, what's kind of tricky is you don't know if it's your supplies that are being a little bit creating an effect or if it's how you paint. So a lot of the times beginners get really frustrated and say, "Oh, I'm not good at this. I'm not good at this." When in reality, it's not them, it's more maybe the supplies that they're using are not in line with their style of painting.
Mm,
And so that's why I'm very much a proponent of trying new things, exploring and experimenting, and also approaching things with a little bit of patience. I mean, when I first started watercolor, I really did not like it. I took a watercolor class in college and
with me.
I
With me.
with Michael.
Yep.
And I really struggled in it. And the reason why I really struggled in it is because I was using it like it was acrylic paint because that's what I was familiar with. I didn't understand how to basically utilize the water aspect of watercolor. So I didn't have a good experience with it. So I spent years thinking I hated watercolor. And so that's why, like, when you're trying a new supply, you don't want to go into it thinking, like it needs to have certain expectations in order to meet whatever it is that you think. It's like respond to what it's doing and play with it instead of dismissing it because it's maybe not performing how you would expect it to perform. And because of that approach, it's actually really then becomes more fun of let's try this new thing, or I wonder what's going to happen, or how can I use this, instead of limiting yourself instead of the supplies that you use. Okay, so as you can see, I did some leaves too. All of my flowers were still wet. So wherever that green kind of touched the florals, it bled and I let it. We're letting it move. We're really embracing the wet on wet. This is an aspect of watercolor that is so unique to the medium that I really feel like we do a disservice by not celebrating it more. Um, the the little like whoosh of colors that goes into these other colors are so beautiful and accidental and surprising every single time, and that is not something that you can do with acrylic or oil. So it's just like let's lean into this medium, you know what I mean?
hmm
Okay, so I just want to like call attention to these like beautiful hints of blue. I'm going to do more because I love it so much. Let's do some here. Oh, stunning.
Nice.
And then if ever there's an area like I kind of covered it up. This was a good example where this was like a white section up here. And obviously, there's not enough room here to do a whole flower. So you just do the start of a flower. Sometimes our brain, because we have strong edges, whenever we're doing a composition or a painting or something like that, in our minds, we think that the world that we're creating within this painting ends at the taped edge, which means we don't continue it as if there is no taped edge. So I want you to paint things, and this is true for landscapes or floral patterns or all of that kind of stuff. Paint as if there is not such a defined border, because when you act like there is such a defined border within your painting area, you tend to try and force things a little bit, or at least like here, you would try and force like a whole flower in here. There's not enough space, and that throws your composition off. So you want to paint as if you're just like cropped into something instead of the world has ended within this border. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Expand your vision.
Yeah. Okay, and then just for fun, if you wanted to do like a little extra touch of any kind of color along these edges, my paper is still damp, so it's gonna fuzz out, but just a little, oh gosh, the opera pink. Oh, there is one note that I do want to make about this paper. And for that, that's like totally my bad that I have to own up to it. When I was testing these papers and trying which ones I wanted to use for our con paper, it was during the time where I did not use masking fluid. Okay.
You're anti-masking
Do you
fluid?
remember I had those tutorials where I'm like, you can use masking fluid, but I'm not going to because I don't like it. So I like literally never used it in my work. So when I was testing this paper, I didn't test it with masking fluid because I was like, don't need it. Now I use masking fluid. And unfortunately, this paper does not perform super well with masking fluid.
Well, you live and you learn.
You live and you learn. And also, you cannot predict what you're going to like. Because honestly, when I was testing it, it was just like, I don't even need to try this because I never use it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And now I use because we found somebody sent us that
Schminka.
schminka uh drawing gum or whatever it's called that I love and I use it all of the time. And then when I try to use it with this paper, I went, ooh. So, anyways, if you've experienced that, that was totally my bad. I'm going to try different masking fluids to see if there is a kind that does work well with it because different brands have different properties. You know what I mean? So, it's possible that it can still work well with it. You just have to get a different thing. But
And again, also, like, this paper does some things better than others. It's just like, take some here, lose some here.
yeah, I just felt really embarrassed.
That's all right.
So sorry. I'm sorry about that. Especially, it's just the worst when people think it's their error, like user error, and you're like, no, it's not you. It's me. Sorry. Okay, so that's step one. The other thing I want to say, and I'll probably like work on this with the details, is you don't want there to be too many white areas between your floral elements. This is something that I've noticed that people really struggle with for some reason. When you're painting like a floral loose pattern like this, you want the flowers to butt up against each other. You want the colors to bleed. And when you do that, it makes it easier to create this feeling of fullness and wildness and make your composition feel full and colorful. When we leave these huge white gaps between flowers, that's when things start to go really tricky of how to like make it feel cohesive. Okay.
Mhm.
One thing that you do, let's say that you've painted this and it's like dried, but there's still like some more white gaps than you would maybe want. This is such a loose type of painting that you can always go in and just kind of fill them in just a little bit. I'm not doing it like covering it completely, but you could do enough that it just kind of softens those spaces and feels more full. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, now for our second step, what we're going to do is we're going to start doing our petal details. So if you're thinking about a specific type of petal in terms of texture and the movement and the overall shape and flow and form of the petals, this is where you're going to start to kind of implement it with detail marks. So for me, I'm going to use like a liner brush. And for, let's say, this flower here, if I want it to feel more Icelandic poppy-ish, I'm going to take the same color mixture that I've been using, which is like a peachy pink, but I'm going to be picking up more paint on my brush, which is then going to create a darker value. And that darker value on my brush is going to show up against the light value flower. Okay.
Okay.
So using a detail brush, I'm going to think about how like the ends of Icelandic poppy, like the petals are really tissue papery. So I'm going to do like a roughly edge and then they kind of like spread out. And so my detail lines are going to be that big, like whoosh kind of shape. If you're doing daisies, that's a very different floral experience because those petals are a little bit more straight and not as tissue paper thinner than roughly curvy. The other really beautiful thing about watercolor, which I love, is like this color palette and the movement of it is so beautiful that you don't even have to do detail lines on this if you just want this to be done. People will still be able to look at this and say, oh, flowers, even though they can't tell what type of flowers or anything like that. It's just our brain is super helpful in terms it creates it looks for patterns and creates assumptions really quickly. And so with watercolor, you basically just do like a roundish shape and like a pink purpley color with the yellow center. That's literally all you have to do. And people are going to be like, that's a flower. And it's just like, yes, it is. Thank you very much. And you can move on. So if you like the beautiful, like gorgeous wash that you guys have already created just in that first step, that you don't really feel like you want to cover it up or you don't, like you struggle with detail lines, don't put it in. Just leave it. That detail line got a little bit too thick. And notice that I don't have to um, do crazy line work on this. It's just a little bit of here and there to shape it. And I'm going to keep going like that across all of my flowers. Now, if I get to a flower that's feeling more like a pansy, pansies are kind of more like they have a nice, like wide flower along the left, the right, and the bottom. And then they have like a hidden fourth. So here's my bottom pansy petal. Here is going to be my side. And then here's like a hint of a fourth. And then what is super like what really shapes pansies is the patterning as the petals kind of come off. They have that kind of yellow
Mm.
like that. And also sometimes I don't like it when the outline just feels too separate from the wash. So I'll just like soften it. Let's do more purpley. And again, like all of these florals that I'm doing are out of memory. So it's possible that you're like, the details on the pansies are actually here. That's probably totally correct. If you want to be really particular about the flower details, you can like just search up whatever flower you're trying to recreate. Another thing that you can do that is sometimes helpful is you can just look at floral outlines. Like if you have the farmer's market workbook, you'll see some in there. If you have the floral, just watercolor workbook, there'll be some in there. But sometimes just seeing like a line drawing of flowers is the information we're looking for in terms of like how to do these detail lines. And notice how it's important that your detail lines are just a click or two darker in value because I just want to show you what it looks like when the values are the same. You cannot see that. So if you're trying to put detail lines, I mean, there was paint on my brush, but it was the same value as the wash. So it wasn't, you couldn't see it. So if you want your detail lines to be seen, you need to make sure that they're a little bit darker in value. However, you do not want to go so dark in value that now the contrast is so crazy that they feel disjointed.
Yeah.
So that's why I say a click or two darker in value and not 10 clicks darker in value. Unless, of course, you wanted to do an ink and wash painting. For everything that I say, know that there is literally the
There's an edge case where, yeah, that actually is how you should do it.
yeah.
Yeah. That's how life is.
That's just how life is.
Don't do it this way unless you want to do it this way.
Exactly. Follow the rules unless you want to break the rules.
Right.
Because then you learn there are no rules. It's just that's
There is no spoon.
yeah.
What's that from?
That is from the Matrix.
Matrix. Excellent movie. I know we talked about it recently, but it holds up. You know, I watched it again recently. It's a great movie still.
Good.
2026 Michael approves.
Good.
We'll circle back in 10 years.
The other thing too is you don't have to do this detailing on every flower. Like this edge one here, that's just kind of like blue and chilling. I'm gonna leave that. I'm not gonna do anything on that. I don't feel like it needs it. For the leaves, it's the same kind of thing. It's just like a dark value of whatever green that you used. And then you can just kind of shape them a little bit. You can outline them, you can do a vein. If you don't want to shape them, don't. And you might be like, well, where are these flower leaves coming out of? Doesn't matter. This is like a pattern. Like think of like a floral dress pattern or a wallpaper pattern or a curtain pattern. There's not really, a start and an end. Okay, now the very last step is doing the center of these flowers. So I'm going to actually mix, you can mix like indigo or just a darker value in with your gold color. That's going to give you like a dark brown. And so if you want, you can do like little dots around the center. And if you also, this is a wonderful thing about watercolor. If you don't like it, just lift it right up and then mix a different color. A lot of people think that with watercolor you can't erase, but that's not true. You totally can. It's just a little bit trickier. I just felt like that brown was like too black.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to soften it up a little bit. Yeah, that feels better. And then maybe with the pansy is where we go a little bit darker here. Yeah. Oh, doesn't that look like a pansy?
Mm-hmm.
Cute.
Pansies are cute.
I'm obsessed with them.
Listen, I don't know a lot about pansies, but I feel like recently in some food dish we got at a restaurant, they had a teeny tiny pansy on it. Do you remember that? Or it might have been a beverage or something, but like this
Yes, it
pansy,
was a beverage. It was a cocktail.
this pansy was like a half inch. It was the
It
cutest
was
little
like
pansy.
this big. It was so cute.
It was a pansy.
It was a pansy. I will also say about pansies, sometimes flowers I don't love until I try and paint them. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I love you. So, like, I didn't love pansies until I started painting them. And then I'm like, you're amazing. Same with tulips. I didn't really care for tulips in like real life. And then I painted them and I went, oh, you're good.
Do you want to tell the good people why you didn't like pansies? Because I know.
Why didn't I like pansies?
Because you thought they were mean from Alice in
Oh,
Wonderland,
yeah.
and it clouded your judgment
How do
about
you,
pansies.
how can you watch Alice in Wonderland and not think that pansies are mean? They were so mean.
They were mean, but I love that that clouded your real life love of pansies.
It did. Whenever I saw one, I'm like, you're judging me. And I know as soon as I walk away, you're going to talk with all
With
your
your
little
little
pansy
pansy.
friends.
Yeah.
You're going to say bad things about me. And I don't like that.
That's a real fact, you guys. I
It is
asked
a
her why
real.
she didn't like pansies. She was like,
Yeah.
well, they're mean in Alice in Wonderland.
They're really mean. Okay. Boo, boo, boo. And you guys can figure out how much detail you want to put in, how much detail you don't want to put in. It's totally up to you. This is your painting. And again, we've been doing this for what? 25 minutes maybe? Like, and I've been talking a lot. Like, imagine if I wasn't talking, how quickly this can get done.
We'd be done 20 minutes ago.
We would have been done 20 minutes. This is a 5-minute painting. But really, what I'm trying to say is like, at the very least, we have fun when we paint together. And so, like, even if you paint something that you're not totally proud of and it's not the best thing that you ever painted, it's still so good for your soul. It's so good for your mental health. It's so good. Like, even if a painting does not turn out, it's a learning experience. It adds to your skills. It's worth it to take the time. And that's why I like doing miniature ones too, because it's just not such a huge commitment, but you still walk away being like, yeah, I did that,
Mm-hmm. And if you don't love it, give it to your neighbor. They'll love it.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to remove the tape because that is the best part. A little white border I think is so cute.
Mm-hmm.
This is where you can really tell if my taping was crooked though. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's so cute.
And then look, let's put it in the frame.
So cute.
Come on.
Come on.
Come on. It's crooked in there. Hold on.
Hot tip, paint on both sides.
Oh my gosh, yes.
You could have reversible flower,
You can even like,
Yep.
how cute is that?
Love it.
All right. That's it. That's our painting. I hope you have fun with it. I hope that this gives you permission just to play around with colors that you really like and just see what happens. Let the watercolor and the water do the work for you. Embrace the blooms and the textures and the color mixtures that you're going to get. Even if some of it is a little bit muddy, that is not bad. That's not a bad thing. Okay. Also, I hope it gives you a little bit of insight of how I like to approach new supplies. I don't go into it saying you need to behave X, Y, and Z. I more go into it with an open and curious mind saying, what are you doing? And do I like what it's happening or not happening? Do I need to slightly adjust anything to appreciate it? And you'll learn over time some things are for you and some things are not for you. There's nothing wrong with that. And then you just like move on. But all of it is just adding to your experience and understanding of watercolor and how to use it. And then that way you're not boxed in being like, I can only paint something good if I have this exact paint and this exact paper and this exact brush. I feel like that is so limiting for your creativity. Anyone can make a masterpiece literally using any supplies. I will fight you on that. I'm just kidding.
But you will.
All right. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next time. Bye.